Today we wanted to have a really interactive session with you guys. So we're going to go through a little more detail on some of the things that we talked about during the keynote. We're going to have plenty of time for Q&A, and people will be walking around with a mic towards the end to give it to people to ask questions. So fire away on that. Kind of a interesting title to the presentation here, but the backstory about why we even started the company that ended up here was that we looked at what was happening in the intelligent assistant area and said, what's missing? What is the thing that will take this from being a novelty or a basic, a very basic tool that people use today into the next, to the next level and to really make a paradigm shift? Every 10 years or so, there's a big paradigm shift. If you think about back in the day, everyone had to have a website. When the web first came on, browsers were starting to come out. In the end, everybody needed a website, or you really didn't have reach in the world. Then mobile apps came along and changed the world again. And we think now that, and we're not alone here, we think assistants are clearly the next big paradigm. So our focus was, from the beginning, to add the missing element, to raise the level of engagement that people have. And the way to do that was to involve developers. So that was really the core of why we are doing what we're doing. Why another paradigm, right? So all sorts of new things happening in terms of the number of devices around, all of the various use cases that we haven't even begun to dream up, which is why it's so exciting to have you guys here, to have everybody that's at this conference here, is that we can't think of all of these ideas. If you guys remember back when the original iPhone came out, 2007, there were only about 9 applications that came on the phone. They were all made by Apple. There was no App Store. And then it was when the App Store came along about 9 months later that basically changed the world and kind of brought the whole world to this app-centric place. So there's lots of different use cases. There's this whole Internet of Things, which creates all these multi-device user experience type of new possibilities. So that is really why we did what we did, why we built what we did, to unleash the creativity and power of developers. So today we're in this world about apps living on your phone. And of course, as a natural evolution of that now, we believe everything's going to move into the cloud. Why? Because you're not going to want to have to reintroduce yourself to every new device that you're going to want to talk to. Right? There's this need to bring all of the things like personalization, like seamless transactions, frictionless transactions, things like that. So it has to be a cloud-based architecture, and that's exactly what Bixby is. So it's going to be working across all these devices, but not only Samsung devices. So yes, we're focusing on that because we're a small team and we're growing quickly, but it's not going to be long before we're going to be offering Bixby across devices from other hardware manufacturers. So that's one of the big leaps forward that we're going to be participating in. We believe that there's 4 things that are going to take assistants from what we call sort of today's basic version to really creating this paradigm that we're talking to. So one assistant is one of them. So again, once you have an assistant, this should follow you around seamlessly, around your home, in your pocket, in your car, and so on. You don't want to have to reintroduce yourself. Any kind of device that it makes sense to be able to talk to in one way or another, we wanted to be able to make sure that it's possible to connect. And then, of course, anyone that can come up with services. So there's big branded services you've heard of. There's all sorts of new things and creativity that you guys are going to bring to this game that we can't even imagine yet. We wanted to make that easy, and that's sort of how this statement that I made earlier about, actually Adam made up, which is we wanted to make simple things simple to make the complex things possible to make. So this is what's so special about this technology, is that it's really easy to get started. It's really easy to build stuff. But the breadth of what you can build is unprecedented in any of the tools in this space. And then, of course, the personalization part is really, really important. Once you've spent a lot of time, and we think with privacy issues, we've got a good idea on how we're going to handle these types of things. Personalization is going to be something you're going to want your assistant to really get to know you well. So it's a really important part of this future, and it makes everything more seamless. So the whole personalization side of it, you're going to see a lot more coming from Bixby on that. So for those of you who don't actively use it, I'm just going to take you through a brief walk on some of the cool things that we have right now. So multimodal inputs, what we call tap, talk, or type. So you can enter, you can do it quietly in a meeting, you can talk to it, you can talk to various devices. So multimodal input. We have something called highlights, which is basically when you're asking for something that has a huge potential list, what we try to do is to think about, we get to know your preferences and offer up things that are relevant to you. So let's take the list of the infinite possible answers to what it is you're looking for, and let's, at least at the top, let's look at and how to divide that into things that are something that's really relevant, like the highest rated thing nearby, if you're looking for a restaurant, or other types of categories like that. So we're putting a lot of machine learning into that type of personalization. So more personalization. So this isn't the best example. If you go to make a dinner reservation and you go out with your wife often, and it would default and say, well, you're probably with two people. That varies a lot. But imagine you take an Uber to work every day or to the train station. And when you take that Uber, you want it to be a cheap ride in the morning because you do it every day. If you say to Bixby, get me an Uber X, and it's between a certain time in the morning, and you do that 3 days in a row, you don't have to say Uber X anymore. It's going to automatically know that you want the cheaper of the rides because it's a day, right? That will not affect what happens at night. This is just a little example of how some of the personalization will work, but there's a lot going into this, and a lot of these use cases is centered around your behaviors, and you're going to be able to go in there and see what it knows about you as well. Seamless transactions is a really important one because we believe in this notion of conversational commerce is going to be really big. Using your voice to buy stuff. I don't know if you guys are into the self-driving car phenomenon or not, but there's billions of hours of wasted commute time in cars, just people stuck in traffic. We're thinking about how cool would it be to just say, send my dad the latest biography by Walter Isaacson about Leonardo da Vinci, and write this on the card, and just while you're driving. Getting things done in a otherwise completely wasted time sort of scenario is really important for us. So we think being able to have seamless transactions around that requires payment systems that are very flexible to a lot of the different internet models. So we have Samsung Pay for sort of secure storage of credit cards. We've got OAuth 2, which is industry standard way to sort of handshake securely with lots of different providers in other ways. But the point is, the Bixby platform is going to be very good at being able to plug into any type of transaction platforms. Activity cards. So this is really just a neat thing to say, like, what's coming up. It'll be reminding you of things that are happening, or your Uber's on the way, or you have an upcoming reservation. Open ecosystem. So this is, I started to talk about this at the beginning. This is sort of at the core of why we're doing what we're doing. Samsung's got, as you know, I was blown away when I actually heard the real numbers about how many devices this place ships every year. It's 500 million. I mean, that's staggering. Within a few years, Bixby's going to be on over 1 billion devices. So there's a huge market just within the Samsung sphere. That's just an endless ecosystem of new opportunities, new use cases, and so on. And of course, as we expand that out over time, there'll be other third-party manufacturers. So this is a market, and this is a unique company to get associated with and aligned with if you believe that this is the future. There's so many opportunities. So users will make use of your services. Why? Because there's a huge market. The tools are there now to make unbelievably good experiences like you haven't seen before in other assistants. It'll be baked into the devices, so things like hot buttons, voice wake words. That's the important part of you have to be able to access those. I mean, you're not going to go on your Bixby phone or your Android phone and go find an app called Siri or Alexa. All right? Even though a lot of these providers are doing that, people just don't go there because it's easier to press a button. Obviously, when you have the company that makes it easy to interact with wake words and very natural interactions, usage will be that much higher. That's why it's another reason why Samsung's a special place for that. One assistant, so Bixby will be a very pervasive brand, but one of the things we also believe in is attribution. So whatever services, whoever's making these services, there's going to be clear branding associated with that because it's all about recognition. It's about building a brand and become the default favorite for whatever it is that you do in this new paradigm. I call it kind of analogous to SEO. Right? What you really want in this market is to be the one service that you're in early, you've done a really good job with it, people enable it, and it becomes their default, and they'll just leave it alone, like as if it's a browser setting. I mean, I don't know what the stats are exactly these days, but if you buy a PC and it's got Safari in it or whatever, people just very rarely will change the default settings, especially when you have a new service that's unique, becomes the one that you get used to, becomes the standard for that service. That's going to be a very important thing and reason to get in early, as I was talking about in the keynote. So Marketplace is coming soon. Marketplace is basically it's not an app store because this is sort of beyond apps, but that's the analogy of what it is. It'll be the place that consumers will go to discover the services and enable them. So yeah, early adopters, obviously I've gone through that many times, why that's important to get in there. We're going to keep adding new business models. So again, analogous to an app store, there'll be subscriptions, there'll be transactions, lots of different, evolving, and we know that making money for developers is going to be one of the most important parts here. And we've seen other ecosystems explode, so we think this is going to be just as big or bigger. We're also going to be supporting categories. So we're going to spend a lot of time really, really curating the experience so that the way people interact with Bixby in various categories in particular is going to be super seamless. And we're going to keep adding as quickly as we can to those categories. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Adam. And
Thanks, Doug.
We're going to do a few things, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end.
So I'm the tech guy. I have no slides. I want this to be a little bit fun. I'm going to get into the technology and give you a little bit of the insight of why did we come up with this, and show you a little bit more in more depth than I could do in a keynote about how you build. But the first thing I just want to say is I'm so excited about what you are all going to bring to this platform. You're going to be able to have a scalable ecosystem, and your ideas will shine through Bixby. And one thing I thought, just to kind of, if you'll indulge me for a minute, can I show you a capsule I just built this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
A little bit fun. Give me 3 minutes. All right, I'm going to need some help. Who will join me? I need 2 people to join me up here on stage. Got one? Someone else? Anybody?
Yeah, we've got one.
You can actually stand. You're not going to sit. Here. And would you stand here? All right. Of course, if you saw the keynote, you'll know that I enjoy magic as a hobby. So I taught Bixby. Let's see, is this working? Yeah, sorry. I'm still figuring out how to use these giant phones. Could you help? I decided to teach Bixby how to do magic. Let's give it a try. I'll come back to Bixby in just a second. Don't let you worry. So it's going to be a quick card trick. Mix cards, all different.
Okay, yeah.
Good. We're not going to use all of the cards. Good. Set the voice wake up. We need Bixby back in its home. Okay, so I'll put Bixby here. So we're just going to use 10 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. I'll take these. So what I'm going to want to do is we'll mix them up. I'm going to have you choose one, so that way you can't know which one it is. Which card would you like? Just tap one. This one right here? Okay, so I want you to look at it, but don't let anyone else know what it is. Got it? Remember the suit and the value. Now what I'd like you to do is you have 10 cards. I want you to just think of a number from 1 to 10, but don't tell anyone what that is. Now Bixby, you've heard of the Bixby vision mode. What I did was added a new mind reading mode. So I want you, no one knows what card you picked. I want you to just think of your card. Just think. Got it? I want you to just think of your number.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. All right, let's see if this works. Programmed it with this developer tool just recently. Bixby, move one card from here to here.
Abracadabra. I moved it.
All right, if it says so. So if that's the case, we counted 10 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, you're just thinking of a number. No one knows what the number is. There were 10 cards. For the first time, what was the number that you were just thinking of?
5.
5.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is the 5th card. Let's put it here. We won't look at it just yet. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now wait. You were just thinking of a card. You thought of a number.
Yeah.
Bixby. Bixby, what card did she choose?
How about the 9 of diamonds?
What was your card? The 9 of diamonds. Bixby, thank you. Thank you. Be careful on the stage. So what I want to see is can Alexa or Google Assistant or Siri do that? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. All right. Let me hit the screen. So now what I'd like to just do is tell you a little bit more, show you, the developers, a little bit more about the Bixby Developer Studio. As mentioned this morning, if you're a developer, please go to bixby.developer.samsung.com. Or, if that's too long, go to bixbydevelopers.com. Shortcut to get you there. You can download the studio, and here's what you see. It's a beautiful IDE. It's file-based, as Doug had mentioned earlier. And here you build a capsule. And I want to take you just quickly through a few of these elements. I'm going to be using, instead of the space capsule, I'm going to use a capsule being developed by one of our partners, 1-800-Flowers. It's a beautiful capsule. So in this space, when you're selling flowers, the first thing you need to do is you define a concept. What is a concept? It's really an object. It's a set of properties. So if you look at one here, it's called product. They sell lots of products, which are most flowers, but also gift baskets and things. And so within it, there's going to be a name for a product. There'll be an image set. And you'll notice that there are different cardinalities. So you can have a required property, or there could be multiple. Like there may be multiple images, and you do that by saying max many. Now, those constraints, min and max, especially when tied to an action, will actually be super useful. If I say that I need to accomplish something, if I'm going to send a message, I need a recipient, it's required, and I don't have one, just that min required property will be enough to make Bixby say, who's the recipient? And then you can type it in or use your contact book, et cetera, or say it. If you say max 1, there's only 1 required, and you have multiple, that's going to be enough to make Bixby, in the program that it writes, say, which one did you mean? And then learn from that automatically. So you define your objects, your concepts with all of its properties. You define an action. So we have multiple types of actions. Here you can see there's autocomplete all the way through the IDE. Search action has no side effects. But you can have transactional actions and computations of different sorts. You take a number of inputs, and you return outputs. So I'm going to return products by searching. And those are the types of things that you define, the what I want, and how. And then, as we showed in the keynote today, when you go to training, you can just enter in new requests. Send some flowers to Harry. You train them, so you give the goal. In this case, it's an order.commit goal. And you indicate, okay, Harry is going to be a search term from contacts, et cetera. And so that's really, if I had said roses, I would have specified the type of roses. You hit a compile button, and with this, Bixby is instantly going to write. This is a pretty simple program. It says, take Harry, do a send. I need to create an order, and I'm going to be required some products, et cetera. Let's give an example running it. So if I say, send some red roses to Sarah 3 days from now, something like this. You'll see the first thing that comes up is it says, I need your permission to continue. If you're an end user and you're accessing sensitive data like a contacts, we don't just let any information go. We're going to say, is this something that I can send to a particular provider? So we continue. And here it's queried and returned a number of beautiful options. Let me show you one level of detail behind the plan, the program that gets written. It's actually, under the hood, a fairly complicated program. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see. This is what's called the debug console, and it lets you trace every aspect of the program that was instantly written to handle the query by the AI. So here, within this big space, it's doing some date-time computations. It's looking up products with flower types. You can actually drill down and see the data for those products. You can look at the dialogues for the products that were generated from that query, et cetera. So everything under the hood, you will have access to what is happening. And then if I continue, I can drill into a product. I can decide, this one looks pretty good. I don't know if there are multiple images. I can do buying. And so here we're entering into a transactional flow. We have layouts which will pop up that you can display information. And then we get to full transaction. This is a real capsule that will be emerging soon. So if I were to hit purchase, it's connected with Samsung Pay. And Samsung Pay means if a user has put their credit card into Samsung anywhere, let them store it, you as developers will be able to receive the PAN data or the token information in a secure, PCI-compliant way. If your API can do that, you can now have frictionless transactions happening instantly. So that's basically the focus of what I wanted to tell you briefly about the tools. Obviously, this is not the end of the story. We have a number of developer sessions coming up, and I just want to emphasize them quickly, where you can learn everything that you will need to know about developing for Bixby. So here's how we've organized it. We're going to ask Q&A and for Doug and myself. It's the introduction section. Why do we program for Bixby? You've heard we've got the most open tools, the most devices to end users. After this session in this room, I highlighted it. This is the Bixby 101 for developers, teaching you what you need to know. It'll be led by Sarah. It's really kind of a mandatory session if you want to go others. I mean, this is going to be very important. We're going to use the space capsule that I did on stage and open it up to everyone. And we'll teach you how to build that space capsule as the example. And then, if you're interested in learning more, going deeper in depth about certain topics, we've organized all the next talks to build on that first intro session. So you might want to get into the natural language and conversation. That'll take the base capsule and add more to that. You might want to learn about machine learning. That's going to be in the best practices, not the best named topic, but you'll learn how to do machine learning within Bixby framework. Conversational commerce and transactions and payments, multiple devices, multiple locales. All of these will build, and so you can then have a simple capsule with these deeper areas. If you're interested, if you're a designer, and you want to learn the nuances of programming from Bixby, we're different than programming for the web or building an app, and we're different from other AI assistants out there. Learn those differences by going to the design session at 2:30. If you're a business person, come here tomorrow, the partner panel, where we're going to have, I think there's Yelp and Ticketmaster and some premier partners who've been investing a lot in the assistant space and who have built capsules and are offering capsules through Bixby. You'll be able to hear what is the advantages for them and why are they so excited about this future. And then the last talk, 3 p.m., many of you have been part of our private beta developer program. We're hosting a Bixby challenge where we had something, I forget, 70 or so capsules submitted, or more, sorry. And anyway, a number of people submitted capsules, and we're going to choose winners and award cash prizes for some of that. So that's kind of our general program, and we'll open it up to any questions you might have.
So we've got about 10, 12 minutes for Q&A. And yeah, people, they're going to bring you a mic.
So a question on marketplaces and ecosystems. So the success of the App Store was about the developer community building applications and making revenue, right, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. When does Marketplace roll out, and how are you going to address monetization for the developers? And also discovery, right? Because in the beginning, it wasn't such a problem. Like you had a couple of dozen apps, and now today you have, a couple of million. And what are you going to do for discovery and how? Because I think that's a challenge for all the other platforms that are out there as well. Is how do people discover my assistant?
So all the easy questions.
Of course.
So time frame is early next year. We've got a time frame between now where we're going to get everybody going and building and helping them build, and then we're going to have that marketplace open. I'm not going to give you an exact date, but let's call it early next year. Discovery? Yeah,
It
go ahead.
depends on you also, because we don't want to open a marketplace with nothing in it. So this SDC is your head start to get into the marketplace. And pretty much when we've received enough submissions to make a marketplace around it, we'll launch the marketplace. So we're doing this together. In terms of business model, my view, Doug's the business guy, but we're going to have to meet you at your business model. Today you have some service, you offer a website, you offer an app. This is a new channel to new context that Doug talked about. And so what do you want? You're going to want, some people will want their brand to shine through. Some people want to license content and have subscription models. Some people have transactions. We will offer all of those, over time. The first version, today we have in Bixby today transactions. Once the marketplace comes out or shortly thereafter, we will offer premium capsules and subscription models, just like an app store in a sense. So
That's the model that people have sort of grown accustomed to, that it's actually quite relevant in this paradigm as well. But we'll clearly be experimenting and listening to new ideas and how to monetize in ways that don't irritate the customers. Voice-driven stuff is not prone to long spoken advertisements, for example. So you don't want to irritate people, but there's places that have screens, there's places that don't have screens. But honestly, the most important aspect here is getting your voice-first experience to be so differentiated and interesting that you're going to have the opportunity to figure out where the business model goes from there. But getting usage first and being the default for whatever it is that you want to do is going to be the priority. And of course, it's our goal to make this ecosystem huge. So we're going to have to meet those various revenue models that do that.
And in terms of discovery, we want people to be able to speak as naturally as possible to our assistant. You're not going to have to leave that to go to a separate app store, et cetera. It will be part. We're going to target making it part of the experience. So as you're discovering some new capability that your Bixby doesn't do yet, it will offer right then and there at the point of sale, so to speak, when they said, I want to do this. Well, if Bixby can't do that yet, you can go to a marketplace within Bixby to start to find what are the best brands that you trust. Let me try those out. How do I add those to my Bixby configuration, in a sense? We really want everyone, because I'm going to have different capsules than you might have, because we have different interests, different brand preferences. And we want to allow that level of personalization. Thank you.
Great. Next question.
Hi, Pete Haas from North Barrington, Illinois.
Nice.
I'm actually a finalist in the showcase along with Roger here, and we're talking at lunch. How are you going to handle a situation where you say something fairly ambiguous like book me appointment, where it could have a lot of collisions with other capsules? How do you see that working?
Mm-hmm. So natural language is ambiguous anyway, right? I use this example from my previous gig. Book a 4-star restaurant in Boston. What's ambiguous about that until you realize that not only is book, reserve, book is a physical book, but book is also a city in the United States. Star is a city in the United States, and there are 13 Bostons in the United States. So which city are you even talking about? And Star Restaurant's the name of a restaurant, and I'm not talking about a restaurant name. So all natural language is ambiguous. We do have, you'll see in the tools when you go to the natural language session, they're kind of top-level queries and more follow-up or conversational. So if I go at the top level and say, do it, that's highly ambiguous, right? As a follow-up, if you're saying, do you want to book the reservation now? And I say, do it, it has meaning. And so we discourage highly ambiguous top-level requests. If I say this, it should be, we're going to have to train users, perhaps, but we're going to have to expect that when a user makes that top-level request, it will at least get into a general intent. And then from there, you're going to choose what are the capsules that you want, what's my preferred way of making a reservation, who do I want to use. Then you're in a developer experience that you get to define, staying within the Bixby design framework. Go see the session on Bixby design framework.
We want to also encourage it to be like a regular conversation, so it's natural. And you don't start any regular conversation with "do it" without any other context behind there, without getting in trouble in some form, probably. So I think if you think about it in that term, on our side, we have to be able to understand the context of it through the sort of more descriptive initial command. So I think that's at least a partial answer to the question. Who else has questions?
We have one here.
Congratulations on your release. I was part of the beta, and I'm really excited to play with it and build the capsule, and it was a really innovative way to do the whole development. When I put my user hat on, and I think from a user point of view, and this could be a general Samsung challenge, and I have the S8 right now, and it has the older version of Bixby. Now, I don't know, should I use that, to get weather information, sports, or should I call OK Google and start interacting with the Google Assistant?
Yes.
Same challenge with this Bixby when it's going to be on these phones. Are people, what are the use cases, and how do you lead people towards your platform versus Google, which is right there on the home screen?
That's a great question. We're realistic, right? This is, Google Assistant has been in the market for a number of years. Alexa has 40,000 skills. We're really starting behind, but as Doug mentioned in his keynote, it's not always the first to market that is the ultimate winner. Since there's a new paradigm coming, when you say where are we within the age of assistants, we're on day one now, right? Literally, assistants are a utility, not a paradigm yet. And the question is, who will win in the marketplace? And we think Samsung has some significant advantages. One is, we've developed the most sophisticated platform. Now, it may not be the easiest to use, and if you got in, it's like, wow, it's a little different. It takes a little work, but so did iOS, Objective-C. Like, man, what kind of language is that? And so we think that we have the most sophisticated platform, the most devices, and we're going to build a system that hopefully truly scales in this marketplace in a way that where other competitors just give you pretty much a string or a little bit of parse help. You say, assistant, ask app 7 to do command 5. It gives you command 5, but you pretty much have to do most of the work. We have an extremely sophisticated system, for good and for bad, that we think will help scale to a wider variety of use cases, offer more intelligent behavior in a consistent way across devices. We don't want 40,000 different assistants to a user. That's not scalable. You have that today in other competitors. No one's using the third-party services. We're the first to give you the same tools we use to build a framework that really people will be able to access your services in a new scalable way. Last one.
It's hard to see because I feel like I'm in an easy bake oven here with these slides.
Multiple users, multiple devices, same context. Any comments?
Not sure I understood.
So you mean like a speaker, multiple people will all use the same speaker?
A family, 4 Galaxy devices, Galaxy Home, Family Hub,
Yeah.
etc.
So in my view, there are personal devices and shared devices. TV might be shared, speaker might be shared, but everyone has their own phone, say. Within Bixby, you are logged in as a user, and you use your Samsung ID and as your gateway into Bixby no matter where you're accessing it from. So same assistant across any device for that user. And in shared mode, we're going to try to identify the user by voice, by biometrics, et cetera. If we can't, we'll have to fall back to some shared model. But really, our goal is every device has authentication, so we know who you are. Because every Bixby will be different, we want the preferences.
Over time, of course, there's going to be more and more sensors added. You're going to have proximity awareness between devices within Samsung products and things like that that will open up all these different opportunities. So you have to authenticate who it is through their voice, through facial recognition, whatever. Of course, all that stuff is just evolving and gets more and more simple as these devices know about each other and their proximity and who you are and that. So I think that's clearly a part of the roadmap, yeah, no doubt about it. It's the only way it's going to work in multi-device contexts like this.
All right, I think that's our time, but we're so excited to have you here, and please take advantage of the technical sessions coming up and the business sessions. We have code labs. The most important thing is if you're a developer, please download the IDE and give it a try for your use cases. We think it'll be worth your while. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.